Hey everybody, Baldoric here. Today we are going to be talking about Gale, or Galle, or however you say that. The brand new Lance Flyer in the game. Not like we don't have 1,000 of these, but he is pretty interesting. Does have a defensive stat spread, so he can be used kind of like Thea. And we're going to talk a little bit about how to use him today. He does come with Guard Lance, which is honestly a pretty good option to use. I don't use it in most of his builds, but you can definitely make use of it, especially in the budget builds, if you're planning on doing something with the Guard Lance that he comes with already. Now, excuse me. So, talking about different ways to build him, because he does have a great attack stat, but not a great speed stat, he actually does make for a pretty decent support unit slash tank. So, the way I build him is with Courtly Candle. I do think Courtly Candle synergizes really well, giving him those extra stats that he needs. Also, if you give it a plus res, it actually makes his res decently comparable, and especially if you give him, if they're allies that are giving that res buff, his stat spread is great. HP is 67, which is obviously fantastic. It's a great HP threshold to be at. You could even use some other panic skills here if you wanted to do something to that regard, because obviously his attack stat is good. Shove with attack speed link is just kind of one of those things where he's buffing your main sweeper. You could obviously switch this link out to be a different one. You could use smite instead. I tend to use shove for mine because I like keeping him close enough for like the joints. So in this case, I'm using joint drive speed. So that way the person that is close to him is getting a solid boost to his speed stat during combat, and also having that attack speed link going off as well. Obviously, there are other ways you can build this. I gave him sturdy impact because of those instances where he does need to attack. He is going to get a big boost to his attack, and even though he's only going to hit once, it will be high, and it's going to put his defense at a solid 59 before things like Courtly Candle and other buffs around you. Keep in mind, this is considering that Altina and Naga are the bonus units. Obviously, Plumeria doesn't really add anything to his stats because it gives speed, but if you do use her, you do have that Dancer on your team, so it may not benefit him stat-wise, but it benefits your team by having a Dancer, so things to consider. Now in Arena, if you want to use him kind of just to be either your bonus unit or you just want to use him to pick up kills because you do like his giant attack stat, you can do something like this, and I chose Joint Drive Speed here mostly for the people around him, though I think Joint Drive Attack or like a Joint Hone Attack or something would be better. Depends on what you're trying to do with him. However, I actually like the idea of having Sudden Panic as his B slot. There are obviously other options that work well here, but the reason I chose is because his HP stat is 57. And considering that there are buffs very prominent right now in Arena, especially since basically every C skill that's viable score-wise is going to be a buff, Sudden Panic does work really well to give those negative stats to the opponent, which makes it easier to kill. Now, if he's your bonus unit, you want to make sure you're picking up kills. So I chose Courtly Candle with the attack buff, which puts him to 60 attack. This can increase if you want to give him a one of the fruits to change his trait to be an attack trait or something to that effect. And obviously his stats still stay pretty good with a defense of 44, res of 33, all very solid. And with sturdy impact, Heavy Blade's going to be going off every time, which means that Aether is going to be a pretty easy thing to get off. However, most likely you're going to want to put Ruptured Sky here because he is only hitting once. I chose Aether because it is honestly a way to, he's tanky, keeps him alive. It depends on what kind of a team you have him on, but it can definitely work. Obviously, this is going for max score. There are other things you can do. But I do like this idea of a build. I do think it works well while being supporty, but also giving him just enough attack to pick up one kill, which is all you need for a bonus unit. So, things to consider. I think this build does work in Arena. It will pick up a kill and do what it needs to do. Finally, the budget build. Now, this build here is an interesting one. It is basically built so that he will work on attack on player phase and enemy phase, while also giving him a decent stat spread with Fury 3, making sure that he is getting HP back with Noontime Renewal, that could be overkill. In fact, it probably is overkill. So you could easily switch Noontime out for Moonbow or Glimmer. Honestly, whatever works. Quick Riposte is to make it so that on enemy phase he is going to attack twice with 55 attack. Courtly Candle on top of that. Honestly going to do a pretty good job. Drive Attack obviously to be helping those allies around him. Renewal is kind of an up in the air. His B slot could be a lot of different things, but if you're going for like a really easy budget build, Renewal actually does work fairly well here. And if you do switch Noontime out for Glimmer and or Moonbow, not and or, it's or Moonbow, you can't have both, that would be amazing. But if you could just switch it out to be Moonbow or Glimmer, you probably are going to get some utility out of Renewal depending on what mode you're doing, okay? So depending, Renewal could work pretty good, especially if you have him going in and attacking turn 1, so he gets healed turn 2 for that 10 HP. It does work pretty well, and because of Quick Riposte, he's going to be attacking twice on enemy phase. Depending on who your allies are, they're going to get buffed. Now, as of right now, we can only maximum get this guy to +2, so you could +2 him if you wanted to. Obviously, you can't +10, but looking at the stats right now with the added stats on Fury 3, actually stacks up pretty decently as a tank, even for low invest. Does work pretty good. Make sure the skills that you're using work with the team that you have, but something like this will work. Just interchange that B slot to either work with Noontime, or interchange the Noontime to be like Glimmer or Moonbow if you want to use the Renewal thing. Any of these ways work. You can use them a number of different ways. He is basically a blue flyer tank. Honestly, if you want to build him almost exactly like you'd build a Thea, as an example, that build is going to work just as good because his stats are very, very similar to that. But thank you so much for watching this video. I hope you enjoyed it. If you did, consider subscribing. I'm going to be putting out more videos just like this one. Also consider following my Twitter, where I will be retweeting basically everything going on Fire Emblem Heroes. My builds, my thoughts, predictions, things like that I'll put on there. But again, thank you so much for watching this video. I hope you enjoyed it, and I hope to see you next time.